It is officially, as of today, the Marie Antoinette presidency. While 42 million Americans go without critically important food assistance and millions more struggle with huge increases in the cost of everything from rent to health care to what Donald Trump himself describes as, quote, the grocery. The president, who was elected in large part because of the price of eggs and Donald Trump's promise over and over and over again that he would bring the prices down, says, well, let them eat well-done steak. Here's what he actually said last night in response to questions about the public's growing concern that the Trump administration is doing nothing to lower the cost of living.
I call the Democrats con men and women. They make up numbers. But when you look at 25% reduction in costs for Thanksgiving between Biden and me, meaning this administration, that's a tremendous number. It's the biggest reduction in cost in the history of that chart or whatever it is they do. That they do a synopsis of everything. They cover every element of Thanksgiving meals. 25% down. So I don't want to hear about the affordability because right now we're much less.
None of that is true. But there you have it in a nutshell. Trump saying, in effect, just stop talking about it. As we reported right here yesterday, that specific thing he said about that specific meal at Walmart, the Thanksgiving basket that they market. Trump's talked about it now 2 days in a row, but either he's intentionally lying or nobody told him that when you look not even at the fine print, but at the items in the basket, it has half as many items, including no pecan pie, no brand name items, literally 29 items in last year's basket when Biden was president, 15 in the Trump Thanksgiving dinner basket from Donald Trump. And so the reason it costs less is because it has literally half as many items. In other words, it's another example of what I guess we can now describe as Trump's economic policy, make do with less. It's his policy for girls or boys and their dolls. It's his policy for Thanksgiving dinner. And the fact that he can't stop talking about it may actually be the bigger part of the story, that we can now see his desperation and frustration. Trump can't spin the problem away. The rising cost of living, the rising cost of groceries, the rising cost of the things people need for their families is our new reality. And it's been going on for long enough that everybody feels it. Millions of people every day, whether they're at the grocery store or at Walmart or paying their bills or paying for their health care. Just ask Marjorie Taylor Greene.
When the president says there's virtually no inflation and that grocery prices are going down, do you agree with him on that?
No, I go to the grocery store myself. Grocery prices remain high. Energy prices are high. My electricity bills are higher here in Washington, D.C. at my apartment, and they're also higher at my house in Rome, Georgia, higher than they were a year ago. So affordability is a problem. But when I go back home and I talk to many of my constituents, I'm hearing stories of not only are we having a really hard time affording groceries and rent and things like that, but I'm also hearing stories about people maxing out their credit cards just to afford their monthly expenses.
Marjorie Taylor Greene. Didn't have this on my bingo card, but she is one of the loudest and most prominent people in the MAGA world to now represent very publicly, she was in an interview there on CNN, a crack in that coalition. The facade of a unified Republican Party is a thing of the past, at least right now. There are cracks. And on the face of voter rage, which translated into devastating double-digit defeats for Republicans from coast to coast on Tuesday, discontent is simmering inside the GOP against Trump and his very public and brazen displays, an agenda of gilding things with gold and taking bulldozers to the White House to do a multi-million-dollar renovation as Americans struggle to put food on the table. Former Republican Senator Jeff Flake writes in the Washington Post this, quote, "The political climate that once rewarded absolute loyalty to the president is shifting. The Democratic landslide in Tuesday's off-year elections will only add momentum to that. The midterms, now less than a year away, clearly favor the Democrats, particularly in the House, where they are poised to take the majority. And if that happens, it will not be because Democrats have suddenly found the perfect message. It will be because president's economic policies are fundamentally misaligned with both conservative principles and economic reality. The sudden and dramatic backlash to Donald Trump's deeply out-of-touch presidency and approach to the economy is where we start today. Host of the Fast Politics podcast, Vanity Fair special correspondent, MSNBC political analyst Molly Jong-Fast is back. Also with us at the table, the Reverend Al Sharpton, president of the National Action Network and the host of Politics Nation on MSNBC. And MSNBC senior White House correspondent Vaughn Hilliard is here. Oh, Vaughn, we have so many things to ask you about. But let me start with you, Molly, and this incredible split screen. I mean, I think when you saw the policies, when you saw the tariff rollout, when you heard Trump acknowledge in the transition a year ago that the prices were not going to come down, you knew, unfortunately, that people's economic anxieties were going to worsen. But no one could have predicted the actual gilding of the Oval Office, the actual grifting for millions of dollars to make a ballroom for whom those answers in that story only creates a more enraging split screen for the American people.
If you had said to voters, he's going to tear down the East Wing, he's going to obliterate the legacy of Eleanor Roosevelt and all of the first ladies that came before her, people would have said you were crazy.
Yeah, but if you told them eggs would be $1.50, they'd say whatever.
Right.
The fact is they're $10.
Right. And a lot of the inflation is because of his tariffs, right? Like, he is actually doing things to make it worse, right? Yeah. It's not that he's fighting it. It's also that he's making it worse. And I would say, like, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who knows? You know, she's a politician, so she's an opportunist, but she sees an opportunity here. And we haven't seen that before. And I think that is, and Jeff Flake writes about this in this op-ed, which is like, she sees an opportunity because she sees a split between the populism and the royal ballroom.
I think that used to be a flank protected by Steve Bannon. The truth about Donald Trump's economy is that no one will be spared from it, right? Either your premiums are going to surge or you're going to be kicked off of Medicaid, 11 to 17 million people, or you're pissed every time you go to Walmart or the grocery store. If you do your grocery shopping and your sort of, whatever you buy for your kids or your family, everything is more expensive. And this Thanksgiving meal, he's talked about it 2 days in a row. We did the full fact check yesterday, and I welcome the opportunity to do it again. And every time he tells that lie, it's the most easily disproven lie. It had 29 items in it last year. It has 15 in it this year.
And he tries to mislead people with misinformation like it won't be checked. Somebody needs to tell him he's president. Whatever you say, he's going to be checked. But I think that what adds insult to injury, yes, when you look at the $10 eggs, yes, when you look at the fact that people are not given a fair share in terms of what they are used to with premiums and need. I mean, we're talking about people's health care now. We're not talking about a luxury. But to add insult to injury, on top of that, on top of government workers on food lines, literally, you're going to throw a Great Gatsby theme party? I mean, this is how he responds. People are lined up for food, government workers, and you're having a Gatsby party for the rich on top of you tearing down east wing of the White House so you and your friends can have a ballroom. So, I mean, I don't even think it's fair to Marie Antoinette to say let them eat cake. She didn't build a ballroom and she didn't have a Gatsby party while people were starving.
I apologize to Marie Antoinette.
This is absolute. This is a whole nother level. It's almost like you not only don't empathize with the people that are in need, which are most Americans now. It's like you hold them in contempt. I'm going to show you how unconcerned and insensitive I am. I'm going to party hardy at Mar-a-Lago till they get my ballroom ready. Oh, y'all online? Well, let me just explain that away. And then sit up in the press conference while people take turns lying to back up his false statistics.